Sergeseni was a Nubian chief who lived in Lower Nubia, and his claim to the throne, he claimed, was because he was a pharaoh. Now, this would be a big challenge to him and his rivals because they took that as a direct mocking of their culture. And so Amenemhat I decided to go after Sergesani. Amun Menhat was himself not of royal blood. In fact, he was a vizier to Nubia, and he was and is depicted as a person who was tasked with fetching stones from Nubia, a task he did very well. He eventually took over power, probably by force, from the previous pharaoh and established the 12th dynasty. Now, in this period, there was a lot of wars. People from north, people from south, and people from east were coming in all their efforts trying to take over. This battle between him and the Nubians would be very long and hard fought. But there's something else about this that it throws a bit of a weird thing there, which is Amun Menhat seems to be himself a Nubian, at least in race, but he was obviously born in Egypt. This was the time when Nubians felt that they were Egyptians, and this was the time that Egyptians felt that they were Nubians to some degree, and that they had or they owned Nubia because of historical ties. And so these two illegitimate pharaohs from the stance of the Egyptians went to war, sending Numhotep as a he was dispatched by Amenemhet to go fight against the Nubian, and it is depicted that he won against them, which he did, successfully crushing them and leading the road for the 12th dynasty to have full control over the borders of Egypt and Nubia. Amenemhat had several enemies besides just the Nubians, which is why Asiatics are depicted in his tomb, or at least the tomb of Numhotep. But these people are not exactly enemies. They're Asiatics who are refugees from empires in Asia. And you can see here that they're clearly free and depicted to do whatever they want, and depicted very differently from the ancient Egyptians. But things are a little more complicated because Mentuhotep the fourth was in charge of Egypt at this time, and Amenemhat seems to have taken power from Mentuhotep the fourth, who had put him as a vizier. And it's possible that the Nubian Segresani was actually fighting on the side of Mentuhotep, protecting the initial power or the true power of Egypt. Nevertheless, whether or not Mentuhotep the fourth lost his power through force or death, it is obvious that Amenemhat took over. This theory has a lot of legs, considering a couple points. One, Amenemhat, like I said, is not of royal blood. Even if Mentuhotep did not have a heir, it would usually be given to someone else with royal blood, a cousin, a uncle, a nephew, somebody, even maybe a woman. But to be given directly to a vizier is strange, even though he was praised at some point. Maybe there's a solution that's different than these both. Who knows? To answer the question, we should look at the teachings of King Amenemhat. This was written by Senraset or commissioned by Senraset, and it depicts Amenemhat from the grave speaking about how he was taken out of power and what he did when he was still alive. Beginning of the teaching made by the agency of the dual king Sehetebera, son of Ra, Amenemhat's true voice, declaring in a revolution of truth to his son, the Lord of all, saying, Rise as God, listen to what I tell you, that you may be king of earth, that you may rule the river banks and achieve in excess of perfection. Gather yourself against dependence. Nothing comes of it. Anyone puts their heart in the direction of their fear. Never approach them alone. Trust none as brother. Make no friend. Create no intimates. It is worthless. In sleep, guard your heart yourself, for a man has no servant on the day of woe. I gave to the destitute and raised up the orphan. I promoted the man with nothing as much as the man of means. The very eater of my bread made the uprising. The one to whom I gave my arms was creating fear from it. The one clothed in my fine linen was looking at me as if in rags. The one anointed with myrrh was as one who poured lowly water. My living images, my own distinct from men, make for me lament as has not been heard. The greatness of the fight, too, had not been seen. See if you fight in the arena, oblivious of yesterday, there is no good outcome for he who is unaware. It was after the meal. Night had fallen. I took an hour of rest. I lay on my bed, for I had grown weary. My heart began to fall asleep. Suddenly, weapons of counsel were turned against me. I was like a snake of the desert. I woke to my bodyguard. I found it was a body blow by a soldier. If I had swiftly taken weapons in my hand, I would have turned the wretch back in confusion. But there is no knight champion, no one who can fight alone. There can be no success without a protector. See, the attack happened when I was without you, before the court had heard I would hand over to you, before I had sat with you to make your position. For I had not feared it, I had not envisaged it. My heir had not borne the failure of servant. Had woman ever raised troops? Had rebels ever been nurtured within the home? Had water ever been opened up while the canals were being dug, and with locals at their tasks? No disaster had come up behind me since my birth. Never had the like happened. My moment was that of a doer of valiant deeds. I plowed south to Abu, fared north to the marshes. I stood at the limits of the land and saw its contour. I reached the limits of the strongholds by my strength and by my forms. I myself was maker of crops, beloved of Nepri. The Nile flood honored me at every embrace. None hungered in my years, none thirsted then. Men rested through what I had done, and told tales of me. All I had decreed was in its correct place. I trapped lions and brought away crocodiles. I subdued the people of Nubia and brought away the Magi. I made the Asiatics do the dog walk. I made my house adorned with gold, its ceilings in lapis lazuli, its walls in silver, its floors in hard stone, its doors in copper, its bolts of bronze, made for eternity, equipped for everlasting life. I know this, as it is I who am its Lord of all. Yet there are many lies in the streets. The wise agree, the fool refutes it. For whoever lacking your sight cannot know it. O Senraset, live, prosper, be well, my son. My legs leave, but to you alone belongs my own heart, since my eyes saw you born in the hour of happiness, besides the people of the sun as they paid you adoration. See, I have made the past and adored what is to come. It is I who gathered together for you what is in my heart. You are wearing the white crown due to the offspring of the god. The seal is in its place, as I ordained for you. There is jubilation in the barkle of Ra. Kingship has risen, become what it was before. Amenemhet was killed by his own gods when his son and co-regent Senusret I was leading a campaign in Libya. And so Senusret I took over the missions that he had already started, closing down or fortifying the borders of Nubia and making sure that gold would come in and out from Egypt as it did before. In a place called Wawat in Lower Nubia, this giant building was erected, and you can see here that it serves as a good holder of the borders, and it's very effective. And they went as far down as Kerma in order to retrieve gold, so, and trees and stuff like that. It was very, basically, this was the time of reestablishment between Nubia and Egypt, because during the Second Intermediate Period, the Nubians had become completely free and had many different types of kingdoms, including those of Kerma, where they were very successful. This Nubian by descent, Egyptian by nation, family ruled for 200 years. First, there was Amenemhat, Senreset, Amenemhat II, Senreset II, Senreset III, Amenemhat III, Amenemhat IV, and a female ruler called Sobek Nefru. But I think all of them deserve their own video.